Hey sewers, welcome to Dart and Sew. Today I'm going to show you how to shorten a sweater sleeve with a professional looking finish. First, fold your sweater up like this to the desired length, and you're going to draw a straight line with chalk, and that will be your cut line, and that will be where you will attach this sleeve band. Once you mark your line, you'll want to pin it in place so it does not shift. Once you're done pinning, you're going to use two types of threads for your machine. I'm using this woolly nylon, which is a special thread that is good for allowing stretch. You only need to use it in your bobbin. You don't need to wind it too tightly. And for the top, you can use cotton or polyester thread. I'm increasing my stitch length slightly to 3 to allow for the thick fabric and using a straight stitch. Now I'm placing my folded and pinned sleeve and lining it up so exactly on the line where the rib knit meets the sleeve. That will give it a clean transition without any gaps. I'm going to back stitch at the end and remove my pins. This is what it looks like now, and as you can see, it has maintained its stretch, but we are not done yet. I'm going to trim off the excess using my serger. Using the free arm makes it easier to sew in the round. If you don't have a serger, you would zigzag stitch a 1/4 inch away from your stitch line and trim the excess. My serger blade is trimming the excess as I sew, so I'm skipping that part. This is the amount that was trimmed off by the serger. So this is what it looks like on the inside. You will see why I left seam allowance a bit later. If I trimmed all the way up to the stitch line, it would look not as smooth and the seam would be bulky and maybe scratchy. As you can see, the seam looks rolled up and not flat, and we'll need to take care of that. But first, I'm going to take care of my thread tail so my stitch doesn't unravel. I'm just using a large sewing needle and tucking the tail about 1 inch in and trimming the end. Okay, now it is time to help the seam allowance lay flat. So to do that, I am going to first press the seam allowance toward the sleeve. I have my handy dandy sleeve ironing board. You can also just roll up a small towel and put it inside the sleeve, which works just fine. First, here's what not to do. Pressing the iron directly onto the fabric leaves a shiny mark from the seam allowance. It's okay, it will steam off, but instead cover it with light heat-resistant fabric like silk organza and hover with your steam and lightly press. This gives you a much better result. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the sleeve that is pressed and the one that's not. It looks a lot better when it's pressed. Now I'm going to stitch it down so the seam allowance stays in place. I am increasing my stitch length to 3.5 to accommodate for the multiple layers I have to sew through. I am sewing 1/16 of an inch away from the seam line. The most important thing is to make sure that the seam allowance is facing up towards the sleeve and not the rib knit. You could also do 1/8 of an inch if you prefer. Make sure you're not pulling and stretching. It helps to keep checking to make sure that the seam allowance does not flip down. It also helps to pull the seam apart to make sure that there is no fold or a pucker between your stitch lines. And I'm going to backstitch, and let's see how it turns out. Nice. It looks super professional, I think. And the top stitching gives it an extra detail. And this is what it looks like on the inside. And I see that this seam allowance is laying flat and is short enough that it's not going to be in the way. Because the sleeve has been pulled and stretched a lot, I'm going to give it a quick seam and bring it back together. It helps to scrunch it a little bit like this. That's the great thing about knits, the fibers bounce right back. And we are done. Hope you found this tutorial helpful. As always, thank you for watching, and until next time, happy sewing!